Here's a suspense-packed YouTube hook for your story, with a natural transition into a call to action right where the tension begins. What would you do if a grave whispered your name in the dead of night? Not once, but twice, calling you closer, promising something you can't explain. This is a true nightmare. I lived in a small American town where an ancient Thai spirit waited beneath the soil for someone to take its place. And when I finally touched the headstone, it answered. What happened next will keep you awake tonight. If you want to hear exactly what it said and feel the moment the darkness stepped into my world, stay with me till the end. And if you love chilling, immersive stories like this, hit subscribe right now and tell me in the comments what you'd do if a grave ever called. The grave called my name the first time on a cold November night. I thought it was the wind, but the way it spoke, low, steady, almost breathing, made my skin tighten. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a whisper. It was an invitation. I had been living in a small town outside Charleston for 3 years, working odd hours at the harbor, coming home to my quiet rented house. And every evening I'd pass the old cemetery that sat tucked behind the moss-draped oaks. Locals said it was older than the town itself, some graves marked only with stones worn smooth by time. But there was one plot no one talked about, a sunken rectangle of earth with a single granite headstone, carved with strange looping patterns. Not English, not any language I knew. I never cared for ghost stories. But that night when it spoke my name, it felt like the sound went straight into my bones. I didn't tell anyone, not even Molly, the Thai woman who ran the little noodle shop by the pier and had become the closest thing I had to family here. She had a way of seeing through me without trying, the way she'd hand me my bowl of boat noodles and say, "Something following you, yes?" I'd laugh, but she never did. The second time the grave called me was during a rainstorm. I was walking home, soaked through, when the voice slipped between the drumming of raindrops. This time it said more than my name. It said, "Come closer." Something about the way it spoke, calm, patient, certain, made my legs move without thought. I stepped off the road, past the iron gate that leaned on rusted hinges. The grass was wet and cold under my boots. When I reached the grave, the air around it was warmer than the rest of the cemetery. And there was the smell, not decay, something herbal like lemongrass and incense, faint but unmistakable. That's when Molly's stories came back to me. Late nights after closing, she'd talk about her grandmother in Chiang Mai, about the Phi Tai Hong, spirits who died sudden, violent deaths and lingered restless. She said they could call your name if they wanted something from you, and you could never, ever answer unless you were ready to give them what they asked. But I had already stepped too close, and I think it had already answered for me. The ground beneath my boots felt softer than it should have, like it was breathing back at me. I crouched, tracing the strange carvings on the headstone with my fingertips. The grooves were too deep for weather alone to have made them, and the more I touched them, the warmer they became, until it almost burned. My breath caught. Somewhere close, I heard the faint crackle of incense. And then, so sudden it made me flinch, a single drop of water fell onto the stone. But when I looked up, there was no rain, no clouds. "Molly," I whispered no one, because I knew she would understand what I was seeing, what I was feeling. That's when I heard footsteps in the wet grass. Slow, deliberate, coming from behind me. I turned, but there was no one there. The voice came again, this time from beneath my feet. Closer, clearer than ever. "I know you." The ground seemed to shift, just enough to make me step back. And in that moment, I saw something, thin as a thread, slip between the soil and the stone. It was red, not the red of paint or cloth, but the deep red of something alive. I stumbled back to the gate, heart pounding, the warmth still clinging to my hands. I didn't stop until I reached the pier, and when Molly saw me, she froze mid-step. Her eyes went wide, fixed on my hands. "You touched it," she said quietly. Not a question. Her voice trembled just enough to make me feel cold again. "What happens if I did?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, She reached under the counter and pulled out a small cloth bundle tied with fraying red string. She placed it in my hands like it was something fragile, almost sacred. "You keep this close tonight," she said. Her accent was thicker now, like the words carried weight she didn't want to drop. "And you don't go home." Somewhere behind us, the harbor bells clanged against the wind, but the sound didn't match the weather anymore. It was slower, rhythmic, almost like a chant. It rolled in low and steady across the water, each clang echoing a little too long. Molly's eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to me. "Don't look," she said sharply. And for some reason, I obeyed. We sat in the empty shop, the lights dim, the smell of broth and star anise clinging to the air. She poured me tea without asking, her hands moving faster than usual, almost nervous. I kept glancing at the cloth bundle. It was heavier than it looked, and warm, not the warmth of the shop. This heat felt like it was coming from inside it, pulsing faintly, like a heartbeat. "You need to tell me everything," she said finally. So I told her about the voice, the carvings, the strange warmth, the drop of water from a sky that wasn't raining. When I mentioned the thin red thread in the soil, she drew in a sharp breath and muttered something in Thai I didn't recognize. "That is a Sai sin," she said quietly. "A spirit cord." She looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing whether to go on. "If you saw it, it means you are already connected." "Connected to what?" I asked, but before she could answer, the front door rattled against the wind. Only it wasn't windy. The handle turned once. Slow, metal on metal, grinding like someone was testing the lock. Then again, harder this time. The bells on the doorframe jangled in a way that didn't sound right. Too fast, too sharp, like they were being shaken from the inside out. Molly stood, her chair scraping the floor. She reached under the counter and came back with a glass jar filled with cloudy water and dark leaves swirling inside. She pressed it into my free hand. "If it comes in," she said, "you throw this at its feet." I opened my mouth to ask what it was, but the door gave a final, violent rattle. And then the voice from the grave. Only now it was inside the shop, and it wasn't calling my name anymore. It was telling me to open my eyes. I kept them shut tight. Every instinct screamed at me to look, but Molly's voice cut through the air, low and fierce. "Don't. No matter what it shows you, don't." The sound moved around us, circling. It was impossible to tell where it came from. Behind me, above me, right next to my ear, the smell of lemongrass and incense grew stronger, so thick it coated the back of my throat, and then something brushed against my arm. Not a hand. Not exactly. It was cold, like river water in winter, but soft as silk. I gripped the warm cloth bundle with one hand and the cloudy jar with the other. My heart was hammering so loud I could barely hear the words. But they were there, threading themselves into my head in a voice that was both mine and not mine at all. "You belong to me now." The floor creaked near the doorway. I could feel the air shifting, like the room itself was breathing. Molly muttered a prayer under her breath, the Thai words tumbling faster, sharper. And then, suddenly, the presence stopped moving. It was just there, right in front of me, close enough that the warmth from the cloth bundle flared hotter, almost burning. "Molly," I whispered, "I think it's—" The lights went out, all at once. The room fell into a thick, absolute darkness where even the outline of my own hands disappeared. Somewhere in that blackness, the voice returned. Not loud, not urgent, but certain. "Come back to where you touched me." The air shifted again, and this time I heard the slow, deliberate sound of something dripping onto the floor between us. Drip, drip. Each drop landed heavy, like it was hitting what already soaked through. The smell changed, metallic now, sharp and unmistakable. Blood. I wanted to move, to back away, but my legs felt pinned to the floor. The warmth of the cloth bundle was almost unbearable, heat searing through the fabric. I gripped it tighter, and for a moment, I swore I felt something inside it move. Molly's hand found my wrist in the dark. Her grip was ice cold. "We can't stay here," she whispered. But before we could take a step, the drip stopped, and the silence that followed was worse. Then, the voice didn't speak this time. It laughed, low, slow, a sound that didn't belong to any living throat. It started near the floor, then rose up, curling around us like smoke. The laugh became a hum, and the hum was the same rhythm as the harbor bell I'd heard earlier. Something slid across the floor toward me, a soft scrape, like fabric dragged over wood. Then it bumped my boot. I flinched, stepping back, but it clung to me, not physically, no weight, no pressure, just the undeniable awareness of being held. Molly yanked me hard toward the back door. We stumbled into the narrow alley behind the shop. The cold night air hit my face like a slap, but even out here, the humming followed, low and steady, slipping through the shadows. "Molly," I said, breathless, "what does it want from me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the dark stretch of road leading back to the cemetery. Her voice was so quiet, I almost didn't catch it over the hum. "It doesn't want you dead." She swallowed hard. "It wants you to take its place." The words sank into me like ice. Take its place. The meaning came in pieces, jagged and sharp, and I didn't want to put them together. Molly was already moving, pulling me down the alley toward her old pickup. The truck smelled faintly of fish sauce and gasoline. She shoved me inside, slammed the door, and started the engine without looking at me. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. "We go now," she said, eyes fixed on the road ahead, "before it follows too far." But even as she said it, I knew it was already here. The hum had settled somewhere deep inside my skull, no longer coming from outside at all. It pulsed with my heartbeat. I could feel it in my teeth, and my fingertips still gripping the warm bundle. "Molly," I said, "what happens if it follows?" She exhaled slowly through her nose. "In my country, some graves, they are not just the dead. They are prisons." Her knuckles whitened against the wheel. "When the spirit inside finds someone can bind to, it can walk free. But only if the other takes its place." I stared at her profile in the dim dashboard glow. "And if I don't?" The truck hit a pothole hard enough to rattle my bones. "You will," she said, almost to herself. "They always do." We passed the edge of town, streetlights giving way to long stretches of empty road. The air outside grew heavier, thicker, like the night itself was pressing against the windows. Somewhere behind us, faint but certain, came the slow toll of the harbor bell again. Except this time, it was getting closer. The sound was wrong in a way that made my stomach tighten. Each toll came too soon after the last, uneven, like it was rushing to catch up to us. Molly's grip on the wheel tightened until I thought it might snap. She didn't speak, didn't even glance at me. Her eyes stayed locked on the dark ribbon of road ahead, but I could see the reflection of something moving in the rear-view mirror. Not headlights, not a car, something darker than the night around it, sliding over the asphalt without touching it. "Molly," I began. She cut me off. "Don't turn around." The tolling bell was louder now, but I realized there was no echo. It wasn't coming from far away. It was right here, like the sound was blooming inside the truck itself. The warm bundle in my lap shifted again. This time, I was sure of it. It wasn't just moving. It was breathing. "What is this thing you gave me?" I asked, my voice cracking. She hesitated, jaw tight. "It's what keeps you." The bell tolled once more, and the headlights ahead flickered, then went out completely. We were swallowed by darkness, so absolute I could no longer see the road. Molly didn't slow down. Her voice was low, urgent. "If the lights stay gone, it means it's here." The bell rang again, so close it rattled my ribs. And in the blackness ahead, something began to take shape. Tall, still, waiting in the center of the road. The truck shuddered as if the air had turned solid around us. Molly's foot eased off the gas without her meaning to, the engine dropping into a low growl. The shape ahead didn't move, didn't breathe. It was just there, blocking the road, tall enough that its head seemed to vanish into the night sky. The bundle in my lap grew hotter, the pulse inside it matching my heartbeat beat for beat. Then, slightly ahead, faster, like it was trying to outrun mine. Molly, I whispered, what happens if we hit it? She didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked forward, unblinking, as she tightened her grip on the wheel. And then the shape stepped forward. It didn't walk like a person. Its movements were too smooth, gliding as if it wasn't touching the ground at all. With each step, the toll of the harbor bell rang inside my skull. Louder, closer, until I couldn't tell if it was sound or just the pounding of my own blood. Molly slammed her palm against the dashboard. Don't drop the bundle, she said. If you do, it will open. The word open hit me like a slap. I didn't want to ask what was inside. I didn't want to know. The shape was near enough now that I could see it wasn't solid. It shimmered faintly, like heat rising from asphalt, but the air around was ice cold. So cold my breath came out in thick clouds, frosting inside of the windshield. Then, in a voice that was both right beside me and deep inside my chest, it spoke. Come back to where you touched me. The truck's engine sputtered. The dashboard lights blinked. And the bundle in my lap throbbed once, hard, like something inside it was trying to get out. I clutched the bundle tighter, my fingers digging into the fabric until they ached. The heat was unbearable now, searing through my palms, but I didn't dare let go. Outside, the figure had stopped moving. It stood in the dead center of the road, head tilted slightly as if listening. The truck's engine coughed again, weaker this time. We were slowing without meaning to. Molly muttered something rapid and sharp in Thai, her voice shaking. When she finished, she glanced at me just once. If it opens, she said, you won't be you anymore? I swallowed hard, my mouth bone dry. What's inside? She didn't answer. Instead, she threw the truck into reverse, the tires squealing against the asphalt. But the sound of the bell stayed the same distance away. No matter how fast we moved backward, it followed in perfect sync. The figure began to advance again, each glide perfectly timed with the toll of the bell. And then, a new sound, soft at first, like rope unraveling. The red string around the bundle in my lap was loosening, twisting on its own. Panic shot through me. I pressed my hands hard over the knot, but the fabric moved under my grip like something inside was pushing back. The heat grew sharper, burning my skin, until it felt like my bones were glowing from the inside out. The figure was close enough now that I could see its face, or what should have been a face. Instead, there was only shifting darkness, swirling like smoke trapped in glass. And from that darkness, a second voice whispered, separate from first, lower, hungrier. You've already taken the first step. The knot gave one final twitch, and then one loop of the red string came free. The moment the string loosened, a rush of heat exploded from the bundle, flooding the cab of the truck. It wasn't the comforting warmth of fire. It was a feverish, suffocating heat of breath pressed too close to your skin. The air thickened, heavy with that same lemongrass and incense, sent from the grave. The figure stopped just outside the hood, its head tilted again, listening, waiting. Inside the bundle, something shifted, a deliberate, slow movement, as if whatever was inside now knew it was almost free. My grip tightened until my nails bit into my palms, but the knot kept slipping loose in my hands, the fabric slick with sweat. Molly slammed the truck into park, so suddenly my head snapped forward. Her voice was sharp, commanding. Give it to me. I hesitated. The heat, the pull. There was something in it that wanted me to keep holding on, almost like it was mine. Now, she barked, snatching the bundle from my lap before I could decide. She shoved it under her arm, reached into the glove box, and pulled out a glass vial filled with cloudy liquid. With a single motion, she smashed the vial against the bundle. The effect was instant. The heat died in a blink, replaced by a biting cold that made the air sting my skin. The bundle writhed once, then went still. Outside, the figure froze mid-step. The bell stopped tolling. Silence rushed in, so sudden my ears rang with it. But in that silence, I heard a different sound, a slow, steady scratching. From the trunk of the truck, Molly's eyes went wide. It's already inside. The scratching was faint at first, like a single fingertip dragging across metal. Then it grew sharper, faster, until it sounded like claws tearing at the inside of the trunk. Molly threw the bundle into the passenger footwell and reached for the keys. "Hold it shut," she ordered. Before I could ask what she meant, she killed the engine, and the night pressed in heavy around us. I climbed into the back seat, heart hammering, and gripped the trunk latch from inside. Whatever was back, there was pushing now. Not hard, not in bursts, just constant, deliberate pressure, as if it knew it only had to keep going and I'd break. "Molly!" I hissed, but she was outside the truck already, moving toward the rear with a small brass bowl and a lighter. I watched her hands shake as she poured some kind of oil into the bowl, then lit it. The flame caught with a hiss, releasing a bitter smell that burned my nose. The pressure at the trunk eased for a moment. Then the voice came again, low and close, vibrating through the metal under my hands. "You don't belong in your skin." I froze. Every hair on my body lifted. The latch felt warm now, too warm, like something alive was pressed against the other side. Molly's chanting began, soft but rising, the Thai words rolling quick and sharp like stones tumbling in water. The air inside the truck thickened again with that mix of lemongrass and incense. But this time, it carried something else underneath, a sour, coppery tang that made my stomach twist. Then, 3 sharp knocks from inside the trunk, perfectly timed with a harbor bell, tolling again somewhere out in the dark, and a whisper, almost gentle, "Let me see your face." My grip on the latch tightened until my knuckles ached. Every part of me knew that if I moved, even an inch, something would slip through that gap. Something that wasn't meant to walk in this world anymore. Molly's chanting grew louder outside. The brass bowl's flame flickered against the rear glass, casting long, twisting shadows inside the cab. The heat from the latch was almost unbearable now. It pulsed in rhythm with my own heartbeat. No, not mine. Its heartbeat. The 3 knocks came again. Slow, insistent. Each one deepened the last, rattling up my arms into my chest. Then the whisper returned, sliding under my skin like a blade. "You're already halfway gone." I wanted to shout back, to tell it to stop, but my throat locked up. The smell in the air shifted again, stronger incense now, layered over that metallic tang, as if the two were fighting for space. Through the rear glass, I caught sight of Molly's face in the flickering light. Her lips moved faster, her eyes locked on the trunk like she could see through it. And then, a sound I'll never forget, a slow, tearing rip from inside, like fabric splitting underwater. The pressure under my hands vanished. Cold flooded the latch. Molly's voice broke for just a moment, and in that silence between words, the whisper slid back in, calmer now, certain. "I'll wait at the grave." The night went still. No knocks, no tolling bell, only the faint hiss of the flame outside and my own ragged breathing. Molly didn't speak when she climbed back in the truck. She only drove, fast, straight toward the edge of town. Her hands gripped the wheel so tightly her nails left marks in the leather. After a long stretch of silence, she said, barely above a whisper, "It's not finished with you." And though we were miles from the cemetery, the scent of lemongrass and incense still lingered in the air. Faint, but following, we didn't speak for the rest of the drive. The road out of town was empty, the kind of dark where the world beyond the headlights simply didn't exist. The hum in my skull had faded, but it left behind a silence that felt heavier than sound. Molly pulled into a gravel turnout by the marsh. The air here was damp and cool, carrying the faint hiss of distant waves. She killed the engine, and for a moment, we just sat there, breathing in the quiet. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out the bundle. The red string had tightened again, knotted in ways I didn't remember. It looked smaller now, lighter. But I didn't trust that. "This is yours," she said, holding it out. I shook my head instantly. "I don't want it." Her eyes were steady, even in the dim. "That's not the question. The question is whether you keep it close or keep it buried." She stepped out of the truck and motioned for me to follow. We walked down a narrow trail through the reeds until the marsh opened to black, still water. The moon caught faint glints and ripples, silver one moment, vanishing the next. "Here," she said. I hesitated, bundle in my hands. The warmth faint but still there. The scent of lemongrass rose with it, soft but insistent, like it was breathing me in as much as I was breathing it. Once it's under, Molly said, "You don't look back." I crouched, holding the bundle over the water. For a heartbeat, I thought I felt something inside shift toward me, straining. Then, without giving myself time to think, I let it fall. It hit the surface without a splash, just a quiet ripple that spread out in perfect circles. The warmth left my hands in an instant. The air felt cleaner, sharper. We turned and walked back to the truck. Neither of us looked over our shoulders. But as I climbed in, I caught the faintest toll of a bell. Far away, muffled, like it was under water. And somewhere in that sound, my name,